There are many historical photos from the past that still leave experts puzzled today. Looking at some of these photos will make you wonder how some of these events even happened. Join us as we look at 20 rare historical photos that scientists cannot explain. 20. Unlocking the mystery of a 400-year-old timepiece. Archaeologists are perplexed after discovering a 100-year-old Swiss watch in an ancient tomb that was sealed over 400 years ago. They believed they were the first people to visit the Ming dynasty burial in Shangsi, southern China, since the occupant's funeral. But within, they discovered a little watch in the shape of a ring labeled Swiss that is thought to be only a century old. At 10:06 a.m., the mystery timepiece had stopped, covered with mud and gravel. An expert pointed out that watches did not exist during the Ming dynasty, and Switzerland did not even exist as a country. The archaeologists were recording a documentary with 2 journalists when they made the strange discovery. When they attempted to remove the soil from around the coffin, a piece of rock fell off and struck the ground with a metallic clang. They picked up the thing and discovered it was a ring. They were surprised to discover a watch after removing the covering earth and further inspecting it. From 1368 until 1644, China was ruled by the Ming dynasty, often known as the Empire of the Great Ming. 19. Mystery of the Madonna and the UFO. The picture Madonna and Child with the infant St. John in the Palazzo Vecchio's Hercules room is popularly known locally as Madonna del UFO, or Our Lady of the Flying Saucer. Tourists on a guided tour of Florence, Italy, may come across what some take to be proof that mysterious flying objects have existed since the Renaissance. So what exactly is it that ufologists are so enthusiastic about? The work's key figures have not sparked as much criticism as a small patch in the sky above Mary's shoulder. On closer study, it appears to be a domed metal craft that resembles a B-movie flying saucer. Furthermore, on the ground below, a man stares incredulously at the thing while his dog howls at it. But is this indeed an alien invasion? And is it the Italian Roswell? Of course, the explanation is easy enough. Many other nativity or adoration paintings depict a shepherd raising his hand to his head while gazing in astonishment at a radiant cloud. The angel may not be present here, but because some of the original gilding remains, art historians believe it is almost probably the same dazzling cloud. Nonetheless, it adds a fascinating touch of modern intrigue to a tour of the gallery. In our thumbnail, we can see a flying saucer hovering above a small town, with people not even paying attention to it, and a freaky-looking alien sitting and talking to a man. Is the spaceship waiting for the alien? Your guess is as good as mine. 18. Spectre of Newbie Church. The Spectre of Newbie Church is the moniker given to a person discovered in a photograph taken at the Church of Christ, the Consoler, on the grounds of Newbie Hall in North Yorkshire, England. The Reverend Kenneth F. Lord captured this shot in 1963. Because the sculpture resembles a human, and much speculation has centered on who might be depicted. Most believers have concluded that it resembles a 16th century monk wearing a white shroud over his face, maybe to conceal leprosy or another affliction. Others claim it's a costumed accomplice. Initial accounts stated that the figure was 9 feet tall, however its feet are not visible, and it may easily be standing on a box, creating the illusion of height. After reviewing the image, purported photography experts determined it was not the result of double exposure. Yet Rick Burden, founder of the Ghost Hunters of Australia website, says it is probably fake because it looks like so many other double exposure hoaxes. 17. Grandpa's Ghost. This photograph depicts the grandma of the person who submitted the photo. She lived alone until the age of 94, when her cognition began to deteriorate, and she had to be transported to an assisted living facility for her own safety. At the end of the first week, residents and their families were treated to a picnic. The man's mother and sister attended. His sister shot 2 images that day. It was taken on Sunday, August 17, 1997, and they believe the man behind her is their grandfather, who passed away on Sunday, August 14, 1984. They didn't discover the man in the image until Christmas Day 2000, when they were looking through some old family photos at their parents' house. The man's sister felt it was such a lovely photo of their grandmother that she produced a copy for their mother, but no one spotted the man behind her for more than 3 years. When the man arrived at his parents' house on Christmas Day, his sister handed him the picture and said, "Who do you think this man behind Granny looks like?" It took a few seconds to settle in and was completely speechless. 16. The Queen's House Ghosts, 1966. The Queen's House Ghost is one of the most renowned spirit images in history, shot in 1966 at the Queen's House in Greenwich, England. There is no history of the 17th century house being haunted. The shot was taken by 2 Canadian tourists, R.W. Hardy, a retired clergyman, and his wife, while touring the property. They snapped various shots, one of which was of the tulip staircase, which appeared to be vacant at that time. When the shot was developed, something incredible emerged. One or two cowled, ghostly creatures. The film and negative were reviewed by professionals who found no evidence of tampering or technological influence. There is no natural explanation for the photograph. The Hardys were particularly astonished by the photograph, considering they had no interest in ghosts. After the photograph was published, employees at the property reported seeing weird people near the stairs and hearing phantom footsteps. Queen's house is currently part of the National Maritime Museum. 15. Einstein office at Princeton hours after his death. Albert Einstein, whose theories shattered and altered our understanding of how the universe works, died on April 18, 1955, of heart failure. He was 76. His funeral and cremation were very private affairs, with only one photographer, Ralph Morse of Life magazine, capturing the events of that historic day. Morse, armed with his camera and a case of scotch to open doors and loosen tongues, created a quietly intense chronicle of the death of the 20th century icon. However, except for one now famous image of Einstein's office, shot hours after his death, Morse's photographs from that day were never published. Life's editors elected not to publish the complete story at the request of Einstein's son, who begged that the family's privacy be respected while they mourned, and Morse's images remained in the magazine's archives for more than 5 decades. 14. White Lady Ghost in Church. This photograph was taken in 1975 at a church in the Norfolk village of Worsted. You may see the lady with dark hair wearing a yellow and cream suit. Her husband took the photograph. Diane and Peter Berthelot were alone in the church, but a whitish figure was clearly seen behind Diane. Diane claimed that she got a sense of warmth and tranquility when sitting on the church bench. Some people reported seeing a white figure in the chapel on Christmas Eve, which they dubbed the White Lady. In 1830, a guy informed several of his acquaintances that he would be visiting the church on Christmas Eve to see whether the White Lady might be spotted. After he had been gone for a while, his companions went looking for him. They found him hunched in a corner, terrified, and claiming to have seen her, only to fall and die right there. In honor of this tradition, the village pub has been renamed the White Lady. 13. Blanc Monier. Blanche was born in March 1849 in Poitiers, France, into an old, well-established bourgeois family. Her mother had a rigid and conservative mentality, but Blanche was a lovely girl, and as she grew older, she drew the attention of numerous suitors, anxious to propose marriage. In 1874, Blanche was drawn to one man in particular, an older man, a lawyer, but he didn't fulfill her mother's high expectations. Madame Monier is claimed to have stated Blanche would not marry a penniless lawyer. She prevented Blanche from seeing him, and did all in her power to prevent the connection from progressing. She cajoled, pleaded, reasoned, threatened, and attempted bribery, but nothing worked. Blanche was a feisty young woman who resisted her mother whenever possible. Blanche Monier was in love, and despite her mother's objections, continued to see her lover. This upset her mother so much that she felt there was only one thing she could do: lock her up until she saw sense. So, she confined Blanche into a small attic room and gave her an option. She could forget about her unsuitable romance with the poor lawyer, or she might remain in the attic. Blanche Monier believed in love and told her mother that she would never abandon her true love. So she stayed in the attic for 25 years. The police interviewed Madame Monier and her son Marcel. Blanche appeared calm during her ordeal and was treated at a local hospital. Blanche's mother and son denied any wrongdoing, claiming that she chose to live in the attic and could leave at any time. She was never imprisoned. However, officials did not believe them. The couple was accused of unlawful imprisonment and sentenced to prison. In a final twist, Madame Monier became unwell 15 days into her sentence and died. Blanche Monier never recovered from her 25-year tragedy. She was now 50 years old, suffering from serious emotional anguish, having been denied her youth and 12. Time Traveler on Beach. After a historic photo taken on a Cornwall beach in 1943 emerged online, many began to question whether time travel exists. In this photo, taken on Towan Beach in Newquay, locals believe they have found a time traveler hiding in plain sight. How do they know? Well, it appears like a man is using a mobile phone on that beach in September 1943. You know, the device that didn't exist until the 1980s. The shot, which first went viral a few years ago after a person named Stuart Humphreys uploaded it on Twitter, depicts British war workers to the seaside. However, if you zoom in on the man in the brown suit standing in the center of the photograph, you may notice something peculiar. It appears that this man is looking down at something in his hands, and many people believe that something is a phone. His hunched over position resembles that of most modern-day folks when sending a short text or looking through Instagram. Since it was initially uploaded online, many have been analyzing the snapshot to see what this man is carrying in his palm. And if this single image is the proof, we needed that time travel is true after all. Between you and me, I seriously doubt it, but anything is possible. 11. Mysterious ghost hand. Since at least November 2020, a terrifying and ghoulish century-old photograph of a group of girls in a linen mill has been used in web adverts. The shot appears to have been taken around the year 1900. There is no proof it was digitally altered, but it might have been edited prior to processing, printing, or reproduction. The snapshot shows 15 girls standing at a linen industry in what was subsequently known as Northern Ireland. The girl on the right side of the image, second row from the bottom, looks to be carrying something on her shoulder. While there appear to be ghoulish fingers on her shoulder, one expert believes this could simply be the effect of a long camera exposure. While instantaneous photography was established before 1900 in the 19th century, some photographers continued to use long exposure techniques. Experts also investigated whether the fingers on her shoulder were made from materials used in the linen plant. Each girl in the shot has a string around her waist that holds various tools used in her occupation. Falling on the front side of the female to the left of the one in question is an example of the implements they worked with, which resemble the fingers on the other girl's shoulder. 10. The spirit photography of Mumler. In the 1860s, the dead appeared from beyond through raps on tables, messages from mediums, and most notably, photos. William Mumler, a jeweler and photographer based in Boston, accidentally took the first spirit shot in 1861. He took a self-portrait and noticed someone behind him. He initially thought he hadn't cleaned the dish correctly, so he cleaned it again, snapped another photo, and still saw a ghost. He recognized the shadowy form as his deceased relative. Over the years, he snapped dozens of images, including one of Mary Todd Lincoln with the assassinated president behind her. P.T. Barnum, who usually enjoyed a good humbug, was also captivated and displayed several Mumler images in the American Museum. However, as success increased, so did the number of naysayers. Eventually, several of them realized that numerous spirits were still alive. By 1869, the authorities were on the case, claiming Mumler was defrauding individuals of their money. The ghost photographer went to court, backed by the spiritualist community, who insisted he was innocent and real. Mumler was eventually acquitted, since there was no evidence that he used fraudulent practices. 9. The Ghost of Comptonmere. The second Lord Comptonmere died in 1891, and while his funeral was held on December 5th at St. Margaret's Church in Wrenbury, Sybil Corbet, whose sister Lady Sutton was renting the abbey for herself and her siblings, used a long exposure camera to photograph the magnificent Comptonmere Library. The shot was most likely taken at this time due to the convenience of the quiet house, with the entire family and most of the crew paying their respects at the funeral. Corbett reported that the photograph was exposed for about an hour, and when the photo was processed a year later, Sybil saw a surprising sight, a transparent image of a man's upper body seated on one of the library seats. Lord Comptonmere's children noticed the apparition's resemblance to their late father, and the chair the Spectre appeared to be sitting in was his favorite. Was Lord Comptonmere's ghost seeking peace and quiet in his favorite spot in the library while his body was buried 4 miles away? Some have questioned the photograph's authenticity, claiming that due to the shot's long exposure, a man sitting down for a moment and then leaving would produce a transparent figure, claiming that a servant could have walked in, sat down in the chair, and quickly left when he noticed that a photograph was being taken. Sybil, who is always open to possibilities, noticed that this could be a possibility. However, there were very few males in the house at the time, because most of them were attending the burial, and the clothes worn by the guys that were there looked dramatically different from the outfit in the image. Some may ask why only Lord Comptonmere's body may be seen sitting in the chair. We've been thinking about it, and we feel the answer is in the way Lord Comptonmere died. During a visit to London, the Lord was run over by a horse-drawn carriage, sustaining significant injuries to both of his legs. Although it appeared that he might recover, he died suddenly a few weeks later. 8. Amelia Earhart. Amelia Mary Earhart disappeared on July 2, 1937, and was ruled deceased on January 5, 1939. She was an American aviation pioneer, writer, and the first female pilot to fly alone across the Atlantic Ocean. She achieved numerous records and was among the first aviators to promote commercial air travel. She wrote best-selling books on her flying adventures and was influential in the formation of the 99s, a group of female pilots. In 1937, Earhart and navigator Fred Noonan went missing over the Central Pacific Ocean near Howland Island while attempting to be the first woman to accomplish a tour of the globe. The two were last seen in Lae, New Guinea on July 2, 1937, during their final land break before Howland Island and one of the flight's final legs. It is widely assumed that she and Noonan died somewhere in the Pacific during their circumnavigation, barely 3 weeks before her 40th birthday. Nearly a year and 6 months after she and Noonan vanished, Earhart was declared dead. More than 80 years later, investigations and public interest in their disappearance continue. 7. The Great Manta of 1933. When a fish is caught on a hook, it is not news. But when the hook is a boat anchor and the fish weighs between 5 and 6,000 pounds, you have not only news, but even more unusually, a true fish story. In addition, the fish itself serves as proof. Captain Al Khan, fishing off the coast of New Jersey with a group of friends on his cabin cruiser, had the unique experience of engaging in an epic struggle with a monster of the deep that had hooked itself on his anchor line. The result was a tense 3-hour struggle to determine whether the fishing party was catching the fish or the fish was catching the boat and her 4 passengers. But before the battle could be judged solely on its merits, a Coast Guard cutter arrived to rescue the terrified fishermen, and blasting 20 bullets into the monster manta put an end to one of the most exciting and harrowing adventures that any angler has ever experienced. 6. 100-year-old heat girl picks museum Russia. When museum workers in Krasnoyarsk digitalized local images from the early 1900s, they discovered an identical person in each of them, a serious girl clad all in white, striking the same attitude. So far, the mystery girl has been discovered in at least 20 images and 4 glass negatives, which researchers at the Krasnoyarsk Regional Museum of Local Lore think were taken between 1906 and 1908. Based on the condition of the structures in the photos. Most of the landscape images have the girl standing in the backdrop close to several lower-class children, or on a rooftop in front of a railway bridge in the Siberian city. After distributing a series of postcards identifying the girl, the museum hopes that locals might assist to identify her, if that is even conceivable, given the social changes that have transpired in Russia since. 5. 80-year-old painting shows American with smartphone. Umberto Romano created Mr. Pynchon and the Setting of Springfield 84 years ago, depicting a 17th century meeting between Native Americans and English immigrants in Massachusetts, but also including what appears to be a cell phone. Obviously, the picture portrays something from the 1600s, and the artist created it about a century ago, thus it cannot be a cell phone. Art historians speculate that it could be a mirror, a Bible, or a blade, but some believe artists retained secret knowledge of technology, discreetly passing it down for years and concealing it in art. It may sound unusual, but a phone has already appeared in an antique picture. Apple CEO Tim Cook once acknowledged to spotting an iPhone in Peter de Hooch's 347-year-old piece, Man Hands a Letter to a Woman in a Hall. Cook was taken aback when he viewed the Dutch master's piece at an Amsterdam museum, saying he had always assumed he knew when the iPhone was invented, but was no longer certain. Because the name of the artwork implies that it is a letter, it is improbable that it is a cell phone, but who knows? 4. Wright brothers. On December 17, 1903, the Wright Flyer achieved the first prolonged flight by a manned, heavier-than-air powered and controlled aircraft, or airplane. Orville and Wilbur Wright invented and flew it, ushering in the pioneer period of aviation. The Wright brothers flew it 4 times in what is now the hamlet of Kill Devil Hills, about 4 miles south of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. The plane flew 852 feet on its 4th and last flight, but was damaged upon landing and destroyed minutes later when severe gusts pushed it over. The aircraft never flew again, but it was shipped home and later refurbished by Orville. The airplane was initially displayed in a prominent position at the London Science Museum until 1948, when a contentious priority issue was resolved, allowing it to be displayed at the Smithsonian. It is now displayed at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. 3. The Babushka Lady. The Babushka Lady is an unidentified woman who was present during the 1963 assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy and may have photographed or filmed events in Dallas's Dealey Plaza at the time President John F. Kennedy was shot. Her moniker was derived from the headscarf she wore, which resembled scarves worn by elderly Russian women. She crossed Elm Street and joined the crowd ascending the grassy knoll after the shooting. She was last seen walking east on Elm Street in photographs. She and any film she may have taken have never been positively identified. 2. SS Watertown Ghosts. The case of the SS Watertown is a classic example of what many believe to be an authentic ghost photograph. The SS Watertown ghost faces are among the most renowned ghost pictures ever captured. What happened to the sailors in the shot, and can the image be trusted? The SS Watertown was an oil tanker that transported essential oil supplies across the Pacific. In December 1925, the SS Watertown was delivering goods across the Pacific Ocean. 2 of the ship's crew members, Seaman James Courtney and Michael Meehan, were dispatched down to the inside cofferdam to do cleaning and repairs. They were unaware that a toxic gas was flowing into the area where they were operating. Unfortunately, the fumes overwhelmed the 2 men. The day after the men died, shortly before sunset, crew members were taken aback when 2 faces appeared in the water behind the SS Watertown. The ghostly faces in the water appeared to be those of their recently deceased crewmates, Courtney and Meehan. The faces reappeared in the sea several times throughout the following weeks. The crew even managed to get a photo of them. Do you think the ghostly faces by the SS Watertown were real or just a hoax? Let us know in the comments below. 1. Skeletor, Hampton Court Palace. Believing you've seen a ghost is one thing. Capturing it on CCTV is another, especially if you suspect it's Henry VIII's spirit or one of his ill-treated wives. That's exactly what happened in 2007 at Henry VIII's famous Hampton Court Palace, where security personnel were terrified. The 16th century palace is well known for purported hauntings, and in December 2003, reports circulated that security had captured something on CCTV. It all began when security guards noticed fire doors they thought were closed but were left open. When the doors were flung open for the second time, the guards spotted a spine-chilling, eerie sight of someone dressed in an historical costume waiting in the entrance. Many ghost and spirit sightings have been reported at Hampton Court over the years. It's not unexpected given that it was the house of Henry VIII, who is known to have executed 2 of his own wives. Some of these photos, especially the ones with the ghosts, were mind-boggling. Which one was your favorite? Why don't you let us know in the comments below? Well, that's it for now. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and let us know in the comments what you think. Check out our other videos and subscribe to be part of the fun. Click on the notification icon so you can see our new videos as soon as they're uploaded. Thanks for watching and see you next time.